Hello, everybody. My name is Wendy, and I work with Prevention Resources. And I'm going to be spending a little time talking with you today about stress and anxiety management. Now, some of this we already heard a little bit through Jean's presentation, but I did want to touch base on and focus really on it versus just parenting or trauma, but how it all comes together. So first, how has the pandemic impacted you and your family? I know for me, I thought I wasn't that impacted because I've been very lucky in that my, position in my company is still here and I have my family is healthy. But I do realize that over time, it's really had an impact. So I know for some of you, you may have some increasing stress and anxiety. Many may feel a sense of loss. Potentially, you've lost a person who had this illness, or just the fact that you're socially isolated and you can't see people can be a sense of loss. We all are feeling COVID fatigue. And I know for me, there are days you don't want to wear that mask and you don't really want to be that 6 foot apart. You just want to hug people. But we have to keep going. And it's pretty normal to feel these things: sadness, job loss and economic strain, maybe some food or housing insecurity. Many of us have had to deal with modifications to things that we used to do. So like, for example, in religious situations, if you normally went to church every Sunday, all of a sudden now you're watching it on a Zoom. And it's a very different experience. And overall, there's a big uncertainty about what's going to happen next. We know this pandemic is here for a while, and even though we have a light at the end of the tunnel with some vaccinations coming through, it's still a lot of uncertainty. So I know that's how many of this has impacted me. I'm sure it's impacted you as well, and it's impacted our kids. They're not being able to see their grandparents and not being able to, spend time with people. It's been very difficult. But believe it or not, there's actually some positive things about having anxiety. And basically, it's positive if you're able to kind of energize yourself with it. So if you're in a situation where you're concerned and there's maybe danger ahead, you realize that danger and you can get out of that situation by feeling that stress or feeling that anxiety. If you're working hard on something and studying for exam, for example, having that little sense of stress or anxiety can motivate you to study, motivate you to prepare. If you're somebody who needs to do a presentation, like me, for example, if I didn't have time to prepare, I would have been more stressed and more nervous. So just having that little bit of anxiety, that pit of your stomach, kind of motivated me to do more. And that's where some of the positive aspects can come in. Now, with children, obviously, we know that they're affected, especially with this pandemic. They're not in school, or they're only in school part-time with some of their friends. It's really important to be honest with them. It's really, really important to be open about what's going on. Obviously, you need to go with what's age appropriate and how much you tell them and how much you talk about this. But in order for them to develop into independent adults, they need to learn how to cope with challenges, and they need how to build resilience. So, having a little bit of anxiety or stress is helpful, and it helps them learn how to deal with it and move on. And otherwise, they could be stuck in a stage and not really develop and transition to something better. So everybody is allowed to feel what they feel, and children are going to tell you they feel stressed, they feel sad, they feel left out, and they're allowed to have those feelings. It's just, how do they deal with that? If they're feeling left out, what are they doing about it? And how can you help them feel better about that? So your role is to help them, not to do it for them, okay? We want to make sure that they build their resolve and become independent adults, okay? So you don't necessarily want to shield them from the anxiety. You do want to be careful about, again, what's age appropriate for them. So now it's really important that we acknowledge that there's traumatic situations. The pandemic, of course, being one of them. Things are virtual, events are canceled, they've got to put a mask on, they've got to stay 6 feet apart, they can't hug their grandparents, they can't, see their friends. All of that's going to be important that they understand it's not just them. They're not alone. You're not alone. There's help. There's things that we can be doing to get through this together. And sometimes we forget that because it's been going on so long, but we just have to kind of stay the course and keep going and realize that the trauma of this pandemic is affecting their mental health, but it can also affect their relationships and their academics and other things. And we need to work with them on that and help them move past some of that. It's really important to remember that, you know, adversity can be positive in that it can help them move past a situation. They can move on. And so if they can learn from this adversity, they can be better going forward. Now, there are some signs physically when somebody has anxiety, and here are some of them: fatigue, difficulty concentrating, maybe they're actually feeling chest pains or body aches or things like that. So those are, I would say, kind of obvious if you see that in your kids, or if you're feeling them yourself that you're having anxiety. But there's also behavioral signs of anxiety. And the behavioral signs can serve as a tool to kind of open communication and find out what's going on. So what you want to make sure you do is open, observe what's going on with your kids. Are their behaviors changing? Are they no longer interested in doing things they used to like? Are they withdrawing? Are they being aggressive or, shutting down, or, things that they're not usually doing? Are they not meeting their responsibilities at home or work or school? And of course, if you see anything about them utilizing any drugs or alcohol, those are signs that, they're dealing with something probably not in the best way, and we need to work with them on it. Is it affecting their daily life? Is it something that is a short-term thing, or are they constantly kind of dealing with this, and is it showing itself? Obviously, if they are starting in any kind of substance use, it's a problem. I mean, aside from the fact that if you're under 21, it's illegal, it does affect their brain if they start to use any kind of alcohol or medications incorrectly. All of that's going to affect their development of their brain, and we don't want that. So it's never a good idea to use any substances like this for minors. It's just not. I know there are parents that will say, well, they just had a sip, or that. It's just not a good way to go, and I would highly recommend, staying away from this. Things like vaping. I know a lot of our kids have been vaping. I'm hoping that with COVID, they've decided that's not a good idea because of their lungs, but it is, one of the most commonly used things for kids right now, and they can hide it really well. So it's important to be knowledgeable about it and recognize the signs. If they are they hiding? Are they hanging out in their room a lot? Are you finding cartridges, things like that? Okay, because again, those are not the coping skills we really want them to learn. We want them to look for more positive coping skills. So here are some things as a parent or even as a teacher, whatever, that we don't recommend you do if somebody is showing anxiety. Don't be overprotective. You want to solve things for them, and you want to take care of them and make things better, but you really shouldn't. You need to let them learn from their mistakes. You need to let them, to some extent, fail. So you really shouldn't be solving the problem for them. Don't reinforce their anxiety by ignoring it or avoiding it. So like I have an example on here that says fear of driving on the interstate. Everybody, if anybody has kids that are learning how to drive, I had 2 of them, so I understand this. Going around the circles in Flemington is scary. Getting on the highway is scary, but if you never show them how to do it, they're never going to learn. And that first time they get their license and decide to do it themselves could be a real problem. So that's why it's really important that you don't ignore it or reinforce negative things or their anxious behavior. Don't minimize it. It may not be a big deal to you, but it could be a really big deal to them. And one thing, especially as a parent, is try not to compare them to their siblings or their friends. We've all dealt with this, and we've all done it accidentally, I shouldn't have said that. But that's the stuff that makes them feel not so great. They don't want to open up to you. They're not going to come to you if they're sad or having a problem, because you're just going to tell them, your brother didn't have that problem. Why are you having that problem? I never had an issue with that. Why do you have an issue with that? You're not them. They're not you. They're their own person. And dwelling on those kinds of things and comparing them is just going to hurt them instead of help them. So what are some of the things that you should be doing? Validate their feelings. Again, we said it may not be a big deal to you, but to them it is. Guide them, help them. Don't solve the problem for them, but work with them. Help them discover things that will help them. Encourage and praise. So if they are, for example, afraid of public speaking, so, have them practice. Praise when they do get out there and do something. You know, that's the stuff that's going to help them learn and encourage them to continue. Okay. So if they tell you something like, um, you know, I don't know that I'm going to do that well in this class. I'm struggling with it. Help them find ways to do better. Can they talk to their teacher? Can they study additional things? Are there things on the internet that can help them understand how to do this particular problem or this particular worksheet or whatever? And let them know that it's okay. You don't have to be an A student all the time. You don't have to be perfect. That's the concern. They think they have to be perfect, and they don't. They're good as they are. They're good as the person that they are becoming. Um, what's really important, and I know that Jean touched on this before, is how are you handling your own stress and anxiety? So if you're the kind of person that when you get cut off on the road, there's cursing and honking your horn and flipping out, what are they learning? They're learning that. They're seeing you do that. And I know that's a lot of stress on you to have to be perfect. And again, you don't have to be. You can have your moments of, oh my God, I didn't mean to say that. But are you going back and saying, I shouldn't have reacted that way? You know, are you taking care of yourself? Are you self-medicating? Are you going for the drink or grabbing the cigarette or doing something when you're depressed or sad or anxious about something? So it's important to remember that your actions speak louder than words, and they're following what you do. I like to say, if you see on the right side of the screen, about self-care, that an empty lantern provides no light. Self-care is the fuel that allows your light to shine brightly. So remember, if you're empty, if there's nothing left, if your fuel is at zero, you can't help anybody else. So you need to take care of yourself. And again, I know Jean had mentioned that, but it's really important that you don't ignore yourself and your needs and what's going on with you, because again, they're watching you and they can see how you're handling the situation. Okay. So what are some things that may help with anxiety or stress? One of the things that's been pretty effective is through cognitive behavior. And what we're talking about here is things like changing the way you think, so it'll change the way you feel, positive self-talk, addressing negative things that have been ingrained in you. Oh, I'm not smart enough to do this. Oh, I can't do this. Those type of reactions, and changing them to more positive. Finding a way to reframe those thoughts, challenge that. What do you mean you're not smart enough to make an A? If you work hard enough, you can. Especially, I've seen the work that you're doing. You're doing a great job. So encouraging and letting them know that if they work hard, they can achieve it. It's not just an automatic, I can't do this. And that's something that's hard. And it takes time to change the way they may think about themselves and the way that they may act. Remember, a lot of these things could be they had an experience earlier that was negative and they just keep revisiting that. But if they identify those negative thoughts and challenge them, and you show them how to challenge them, they can replace them with realistic thoughts that are more positive. And one of the things, again, that I heard about self-talk, which I thought was interesting, I just heard it this morning, is that self-talk is the most powerful form of communication because it either empowers you or it defeats you. So are you going to let it empower you, or are you going to let it defeat you? And those negative pieces are what's going to defeat you. So it's really, really important to challenge those negative thoughts and behaviors and reframe them to something positive. I can do this. So instead of I'm not smart enough, I can do this. We want to see more of that. And you want to encourage that in your kids, your students, whatever your role may be. Some additional techniques about, challenging this is to challenge the fear. If they're afraid, again, to go on that interstate, challenge them, break it down, help them realize how they can do it. What's the worst that's going to happen to you if you stood up in front of the group and did this presentation? Can we handle that? So if the worst happens, what can we do? Can we talk about it? What can we work through stuff out? Can we practice and do things so that it doesn't get to that point? Is it really that bad if you got to see? What's the worst that's going to happen? Things like that. And you want to get them to realize that, number one, they can challenge the negative. They can make it positive. They can work hard and achieve. And that if you break things down and not look at it as this big mountain in front of you, that you can be better and you can get better at things. One of the things that I used to do is I used to say, it's like a Swiss cheese method. You poke holes in it. So it's not this big thing, it's poked holes. I can do this little bit. I can do this little bit. And I can get to that point where I get it all together. It's not so overwhelming if you poke in the holes in it and you're making it in a smaller impact on you. Some other things, confronting black and white thinking. Is it all or nothing? And that could be that negative thinking again. I'm just not good at this. I can't do it. How do we confront that? How do we change that to something more positive, that there's some flexibility here? Again, with that public speaking situation, have them practice at home, maybe practice in front of friends or a teacher. Build their confidence through each step so that they're not fearful and that they can approach and deal with that anxiety and stress that they may have. It's really important that we have honest conversations about anxiety. I know that Jean also talked about active listening, but remember, if you're talking to someone and you're listening to what they have to say, by reframing what they've said, by making sure they understand that you are really listening, you're building that relationship. They're going to want to come to you. They're going to want to come to you when there's issues. They're going to feel more comfortable with you. So really remember that. Just go, yeah, whatever. They're not going to feel that you're really listening to them. Focus on their strengths. Are there things that they do that are really great and that they can apply those strengths to other things? Remind them that they are on their own path and it's okay. They're good. Everything's great. Don't worry about it. We can move ahead. Learn to focus on what we can control. That's really hard right now with this pandemic, but what are the things that you can control? Well, you can control where you go and when you go. You can control wearing that mask. You can control staying 6 feet apart. You can control those types of things. You can't control other people's behaviors or actions. So don't worry about those. You need to worry about yourself and what you can control and what is in your realm of being right now. What are you able to do? Because if you focus on all those things you can't control, it's just going to build that stress and that feeling of just being upset and overwhelmed. And that's not what we want. We want to be able to get refocused and positive and look toward the future. So what ways to encourage teens to feel normal or build that resiliency? Maintain a schedule and create structure. Go outside and enjoy the fresh air. Again, Jean mentioned this. It's a great coping skill to get fresh air, go outside. I know we're getting to the cold weather, but sometimes even that cold weather can be invigorating. So keep that in mind. Eating healthy and drinking water, taking care of our bodies helps us to feel better. Practicing de-stressing exercises and meditation, and we're going to do a little bit of that in a minute. Plan for the future. Look for positive things. You know, if you have a teen that's in high school, talk about going to college or learning how to drive or things that are coming up. Even with a pandemic, these things can still be happening. Start a new daily ritual. Put music on, dance, practice yoga, baking, whatever it is that, you know, they will enjoy, that you can enjoy with them. And really important is to try and control the screen time. I know it's really hard, especially since we're virtual now and the screen is like our lifeline. But too much social media, too much news, too much of that can be overwhelming. And, you know, like we said, between the pandemic and the election and all the things that are going on right now, it can be too much. So take a break. Tell them no, you know, no screens while we're eating, no screens, you know, so much time before bed, whatever it may be, so that they start to break away from that. And what else could they be doing during that time? Reading a book, listening to music, doing something else so that they're not on those screens is a great option. So here are some positive coping skills that you can use. I just, you know, some of them we've talked about. But what you really want to do here is you want to find what works for them or for you if you're looking in this case. You know, if you're an exercise person, then do the exercise, go to the gym, take the walks. If you're more introverted and you like to be home, maybe writing a journal or a story or listening to music, or if you play an instrument, doing that. Those are the kind of things that will help you to de-stress. And you know what works for you. And you need to work with your kids on what would work for them. You know, telling them to do something that's not in their wheelhouse, not something that they enjoy, that's just not going to help them any, you know. Don't forget to take those deep breaths, just like, you know, Jean had done that square breathing exercise. We forget sometimes when we're overwhelmed just to breathe. I mean, I can't tell you how often that happens to me. So please keep those things in mind. One of the things too that when I was doing some research, I found out, and it makes sense, is that if you have close friendships and you stick with those close friendships at a young age, like in their teenage years, it builds a sense of self-worth and it gives you lower social anxiety. And when they hit ages like 25 and so, they have less symptoms of that anxious behavior or any social issues. So building those strong friendships is really great. And you don't necessarily have to be in person with that friend. But those kinds of things can work if that works for your kids, okay? In addition, as a parent, it's important that you're true to your word. So if you're having conversations with your child and they're trying to open up to you, if you tell them, tell me anything, it's okay, I'm not going to lose it, I'm not going to freak out, then when they do tell you that, you can't freak out. You got to be true to your word. So if they say to you, well, I tried a beer at my friend's house, her parents weren't home, no need to freak out. Talk about it. Why did you do that? Why did you feel you need to do that? Oh, they felt peer pressure. Okay, how can we deal with this? What can we work out together so that you're not feeling pressured to do things you don't really want to do? I also have on here the contract for life. I'm sure some of you have seen this before, but basically, it's a good example, especially if you have teens, that you have a safety plan or a contract that you both agree on. So what this contract is pretty much saying is that if they get themselves into a kind of a sticky situation, maybe involves drugs and alcohol, maybe, a situation that they can't quite get out of, that you agree to help them and go get them, no questions asked, whatever it may be. And that contract you need to stick with. So if your child calls you and says, hey, I'm at this person's house and they got really drunk, I need to be picked up. You go and you pick them up. You don't say, what happened? How did this happen? You wait till the next day, a day after. Doesn't mean you can't address the situation with them and find out what happened, but you can't use that moment and do it in that moment when they're stressed out, because you're just going to ruin that relationship that you are trying to forge with your child, okay? So it's just something to think about, just having that contract with them so they understand that whatever happens, that you're there for them to help them, and you want to be a resource to them. So here's some things that we want to do to help manage anxiety. It's a little toolkit of stuff. Mindfulness, we talked a little bit about, but really important to remember just being present in what's going on right now. If you are not being present and you're worried about what's happening next week, you're losing what's happening right now. And it can cause you to be more anxious. So mindfulness can be meditation, understanding where you are, what's happening right now, breathing methods, guided imagery, other things to help you relax and reduce your stress, okay? It's really good when you start to feel those anxious or symptoms of anxiety occur. Because if you can figure out your trigger points or your child's trigger points that makes them get so crazed or overwhelmed or anxious, then you can do things to reduce that. And it's a way to recognize that anxiety before it takes hold and do something about it, okay? So it's something that you may have to work on, and being mindful is hard. We don't like to just stop and think and relax. It's just not our way of being. So it's important for you to kind of work with them and work with yourself. This may help you as well on being more aware of what's going on. What is happening in your body? What is happening with your breathing? What are you doing right now? What are you feeling right now? And one of the mindfulness activities is something called stop. And basically it's you stop what you're doing. So if you're in the middle of preparing something, just stop. If you're starting to feel that stress, starting to feel that anxiety, stop it, put it out, put it down, take those deep breaths. Breathe in, normal, breathe out. Think about the breaths, focus on those breaths. I always find with stop, I like to close my eyes because it's a way to take that extra breath and just relax, okay? Breathing in, breathing out, help you concentrate, okay? And then observe what's going on in your body. What's going on with your emotions? What's going on with different parts of your body? What's happening with your mouth right now? Like right now, I could use a drink of water. I could stop talking for a second. What's going on with your hands? What's going on with your legs? Are you sitting? Are you standing? Notice what's going on with your body. What's your posture? Because when you're about to feel that stress, you may have changed. You may have tensed up. Things may have happened. So by releasing that, by breathing, you can see and focus and we kind of go back to being relaxed again. and then proceed with whatever it's going to be that'll support you at that point in time. It may be that you need more help. Maybe you need to call a friend and go over the situation. Maybe you need to take a walk outside and just breathe that fresh air. Or maybe you're ready to proceed with whatever you were starting to work on, and now you're calm and you're relaxed. So it's just one of the methods that you can use, and I find it to be helpful as well. I also, again, we talk about deep breathing, and we can do this together, although I know that we did it earlier. But what I'm going to ask you to do is just sit up or stand up straight, and you're going to take a deep breath and hold it for 3 to 5 seconds and then exhale. So let's do this together. Let's breathe in, hold it, exhale. And again, it's just the deep breathing. It's just that ability to take a minute and stop and focus on you and what is going on with you, okay? The square breathing that we did earlier, another example of that. There's also something called grounding, which I also find very interesting. So if you're about to sort of lose it, you're feeling that panic come on, you're feeling that anxiety come on, sometimes by using this grounding 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method can bring you back to where you're supposed to be. It can move you away from those things that may be ingrained in you, memories or negative emotions and things that are challenging emotions, and bring you back to reality. And basically what it says to do is to breathe, obviously, and then do this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you're 5 things you can see. So you look around, what are 5 things that you can see? 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, and 2 things that you can smell. And then 1 emotion that you're feeling. And again, what it's doing is just distressing you, de-stressing, not distressing, de-stressing you and helping to release those feelings that you were having and stop you before you go to that panic attack or that intense anxiety that you were going to feel, okay? Additional things that we've talked about before: promoting a healthy lifestyle, positive affirmations, again, that positive self-talk, remembering that these things can be temporary and that you're going to get through it, that you're stronger than you think you might be. Find joy in the little things, be grateful for the things that you have right now. Those things can help reduce the anxiety. But what happens if you can't do that? What happens if your child or you just can't find a way to reduce that anxiety or that stress, and you're just not sure you're doing the right thing? Maybe you don't think you're the right person for the job. Well, one of the things we highly recommend is that you start with your physician, your family physician, your child's physician, your pediatrician, wherever it may be, and communicate your concerns. What's going on with your child? Are they displaying feelings that, are concerning to you? You can also communicate with your schools, the teachers, the social worker, the counselors, because they may see your child in a different light every day, or your child may have gone to them for help, okay? It's really important to see, is daily function being impaired? Are they not able to do their basic things anymore? Are things happening? And if they express feelings of hopelessness, or in some cases wanting to hurt themselves or hurt others, then you may need to call 911. But it's important for you to trust your instinct. You know your kids, your gut instinct will tell you, I like to call it like your spidey sense. You know something's just not right, and you need to be able to reach out. And it's okay to reach out. People want to help you. So some resources to reach out we have here. We have, behavioral health, suicide hotlines, National Alliance on Mental Health. I highly, recommend you have these resources stored. But if for some reason you don't, we have some ways to get you there. So let me just move ahead for a second. What I like to show are apps, because kids are on their phone all the time or on their devices all the time. So there are some apps out there that can help calm them, work on mindfulness, even offer support and counseling. So here are just a few that I've listed for you, but find again what works for them. So if they're not comfortable talking to you, maybe they need to talk to somebody else. If they don't want to leave the house, well, these are things they can do in the house. So there are ways to kind of get them the support that they need through an app, if that works for you, okay? In addition, as Leslie mentioned earlier, we have our help app, and You can see there's a QR code. If you want to scan that, you can get that right away. But we highly recommend, not only for your kids, but for yourself, to have the help app on your phone, on your iPad, whatever works for you. Because what's nice if it's on your phone, especially, is when you click on one of the tiles on the left, like let's say drugs and alcohol, it will also give you resources and hotlines. And you can literally call right from there. So you don't have to enter the phone number. Where it says call, you can just press that button. So it's a great resource, and we highly recommend that you and your children put this on your phones as soon as you can. So to conclude, I just wanted to go over a few things. It's important to remember that you're not alone and help is out there. And that some level of anxiety can be good and motivating. And it's when that level of anxiety affects your daily life that it could be a problem that we need to work on it. Be honest with your kids and help them address their concerns. Set a good example and take care of yourself, because remember, you're better able to help them if you help yourself. Help them find positive coping skills. What are the things that they enjoy, so that if they're starting to feel stress, what will help them? Work with them to change their negative thoughts into positive ones, breaking down the tasks, Swiss cheesing it. It's not a big mountain anymore. And seek additional help if it's affecting their daily life and they're in any way talking about self-harm or death, because that is a 911 call right away. So I am going to end this.
Awesome job, Wendy. So we have a couple questions from chat, if you're up to answering them.
I will try.
All right. So the first question, any suggestion for kids who have sleep issues due to anxiety, wake up and can't get back to sleep?
Well, I can tell you as an adult, I have sleep issues, so that's going to be an interesting one. But really the things like to help them relax so they can better sleep, having that bedtime routine really helps. Read the book, answer questions, lay down, shut their lights, hug their stuffed animals, whatever it is that, again, can release that stress level, can help them fall back asleep. I highly recommend, but it really does depend on the kid and it depends on their situation. So I would just suggest looking for things that they love that can calm them down, and have them with them in their bed. Have them, know what to do if they wake up. Turn around, snuggle with your favorite stuffed animal, whatever it may be.
Yeah, somebody even in chat mentioned a weighted blanket sometimes helps. Okay, so our second question, is black and white thinking the same as polarized thinking?
I don't know, actually, but black and white, in my opinion, was just, it's all cut and dry. There's no gray. So I guess it could be polarizing, but it's just specifically that I'm not good at this. I can't do this. We want our kids to have that middle ground. We want them to feel confident that they can do things if they work hard. So to me, it's just that it's cut and dry, and there's no gray area. There's no, you feel like there's no way to pull them to the middle. So we want them to be more in the middle, where they can be positive and have some of those negatives at times, but it's really, it's hard when they're just specifically always negative, and it's, no, I'm just not good at this. I can't do this. I'm done. And they shut down on you.
Great. So we don't have any more questions left. So what we're going to do is go to a longer 15-minute break. We'll be back at 12:15. So get some lunch, stretch a little bit, and we look forward to seeing you for our last presentation.
Thank you.